This week on the Third and King podcast, a new chapter in San Francisco Giants history begins at 24 Willie Mays Plaza. But the pageantry quickly ends, thanks to a career day from a little-known boy in blue.
Here's a drive into deep left center. Bernard going all the way, and this one is over the wall. A home run for Kevin Elster.
It's April 11th, 2000. Pacific Bell Park is open for business.
Now a new chapter in Giants baseball is about to begin, with a spectacular new ballpark that promises great days to come. Not just for players and fans, but for people and businesses throughout the Bay Area community. It's time to play ball the way it was meant to be played. In one of the greatest parks in America, Pacific Bell Park.
Welcome to the Third and King podcast, our look back at 20 years of baseball history in downtown San Francisco. I'm your host, Cody Pasby. In just 2 decades, Oracle Park, or Pac Bell, SBC, AT&T, whatever your preferred nomenclature, has become one of the most iconic and historic locales in Major League Baseball. Here, home run records have been shattered. Pennants clinched.
Into right field, a base hit. The throw by Drew to the plate. The Giants are going to the World Series.
Perfect games thrown.
On the ground, Arias from deep third, got him! And that's a perfect game. And the Giants mobbing Matt Cain on the pitcher's mound.
And as it enters its 3rd decade of operation, it looks as good as it did when it opened, maybe even a little better. Because the park became instantly iconic, I think it could be hard for fans, especially younger ones, to remember the long and windy road the Giants took to get here. Look, I'll be the first to admit that my first Giants game was not at Candlestick Park, but at Pac Bell. In fact, it was on May 8th, 2001, to be exact. JT Snow hit 2 home runs that day. I also caught a t-shirt from the t-shirt cannon. It made it all the way up to the 3rd deck. Yeah, it was a good day. So my Candlestick baseball memories aren't actually mine. They're my parents'. My dad would always talk to me about a game he went to with his Little League baseball team in the early 70s. There was a bitter cold wind that blew napkins and discarded hot dog wrappers all around the field, and they were up so high in the half-empty park that there was a 5-second delay between a player hitting the ball and the sound of the crack of the bat. So, basically an average day at the stick for anyone who lived it. There will always be a fondness for Candlestick, but in the 90s, it was clear that the Giants needed to find a new home of their own. In 1992, of course, that home nearly became Tampa, Florida, after a secret meeting with then Giants owner Bob Lurie and Vince DeMolli, who was leading the Florida-based ownership group. Fortunately, that deal was not approved by baseball owners, giving Peter McGowan and his San Francisco-based ownership group the opportunity to buy the team and keep them in the Bay Area. But that still didn't guarantee that the Giants would be playing in San Francisco. For a fleeting moment, it looked like they would be moving 50 miles south to San Jose. Eventually, the San Jose plan fell through, though, and ownership became solely focused on building a privately funded downtown San Francisco ballpark. Public funding for a ballpark had been rejected 4 different times by San Francisco voters while Lurie owned the team, so the Giants decided to make the first ballpark to be built without direct public funds since Dodger Stadium back in 1962. Plans were approved in November of 1996, and the organization broke ground on the new 40,000-plus seat ballpark in December of 1997. The organization wanted to make sure that the weather conditions of their new downtown locale wouldn't resemble those of the ever-windy Candlestick Park, so they consulted a team of engineers from UC Davis during the design process. You can thank those engineers for the incredible views of the Bay Bridge in the San Francisco Bay. See, the Giants originally wanted a downtown backdrop for their new ballpark, but the UC Davis team ran a wind test and found that building the park facing the bay instead would cut the wind levels in half. The park is both a product of its era and a timeless ode to baseball cathedrals of yesteryear. The era of cookie-cutter ballparks finally was over, and new parks like Camden Yards and Coors Field became the model that other teams tried to follow for years to come. Parks like Pac Bell, PNC Park in Pittsburgh, Comerica Park in Detroit, Citi Field in New York, and many, many more followed the trend. This trend towards smaller ballparks meant a more intimate fan experience, as former Giants second baseman Robbie Thompson and announcer Mike Krukow pointed out.
A little smaller ballpark, comfortable. All seats are going to be good seats, not like one of these big stadiums where you're way up in the Bob Uecker seats.
It's that much better for the player and for the fan when things are smaller. At Candlestick, it's like you're watching a silent movie because you can't always hear what's being said out there on the field because you're too far away.
Smaller ballparks also meant more offense, presumably. At least that seemed like it would be the case for left-handed hitters. But of course, not everybody can power through the San Francisco Bay winds quite like Barry Bonds could. Nonetheless, the perceived advantage for lefties was something that Giants third baseman Matt Williams and manager Dusty Baker were keenly aware of back in 1997.
I don't know how crazy Matt Williams is going to be. He's already told me about he wants some of the dimensions lessons in left field out there.
Well, the wind blows out to right, and they're going to be hitting balls in the bay and all that stuff, and we're going to be out there in Death Valley. Take left field and pull it in about 60 feet, just to make it even with right, see.
The excitement for a classic downtown ballpark was being felt among fans and players alike, and even some Giants legends like Vida Blue and Bobby Bonds seemed a bit envious that they couldn't play in such a gorgeous park.
Too bad the Blue Boy is still not pitching. It would be fun. It's going to be an attraction. It's going to be, again, it's the greatest thing that will happen in the city of San Francisco in the next 10 years, baby. This is it.
You know, San Francisco is a very classy city, and now they got a classy place. Years ago, we used to say McCovey hit it in the bay. It actually was a parking lot. But now they can say they hit him in the bay, and actually it's going to be in the bay. So I think it's just tremendous.
By its opening in 2000, hype had reached a fever pitch. Its classic brick facade, quirky in-stadium features, and quite possibly the most scenic view in all of Major League Baseball set up the most anticipated opening day in San Francisco since the team's first game in the city in 1958. So it was only fitting that the Giants' longtime rivals who joined them on their journey west, the Los Angeles Dodgers, would be their first opponent at Pac Bell Park. A sold-out crowd of 40,930 fans packed the stadium on a Tuesday afternoon, ready to christen the new ballpark with a Giants victory. Expectations for the team in 2000 were high, but not sky-high. Since their surprise run to win the NL West crown in 1997, the Giants lost a wildcard tiebreaker to the Chicago Cubs in '98 and finished a distant second to the expansion team Arizona Diamondbacks in 1999. But any team with Barry Bonds and Jeff Kent in the middle of their lineup had a fighting chance, especially now that they'd be playing in a smaller ballpark, right? That was the thought, at least. Here's some pieces of trivia to help you win your next Giants trivia night. The first hit in Pac Bell Park history came off the bat of Dodgers center fielder Devin White. The first RBI came from, who else? Barry Bonds, who drove in third baseman Bill Miller in the first inning. Bonds was also the first Giants player to hit a home run in the ballpark's history.
Bonds makes no bones about the fact about his goals, but whether he'll ever reach the goals are another story. A towering drive to right center. He might be on his way to reaching the goals. Gone. He wants to hit 660, the same number that Willie Mays hit. That's Bonds' third home run of the year. Coming into the season, he had 269. Of course, what it means is for him to do that, a total of 447 home runs right now. So he'd average about 36 for the next 6 years. Doesn't seem like it would be possible, but who knows?
But the first home run by any player came from the most unlikely of sources.
There's a drive into deep left center. Bernard going all the way, and this one is over the wall. A home run for Kevin Elster. So Elster clears that center field fence. Now it's 404 out there. I mean, that is a long poke.
Dodgers shortstop Kevin Elster, who had all but retired from baseball after the 1998 season, became the unlikely star of the game and seemed to prove everyone's assumption that Pac Bell Park would become a haven for hitters. Elster finished his career with just 88 home runs and just over 2,800 at-bats, but he connected for not just one, not two.
And a towering fly ball to left. Bonds to the track at the wall. Elster has hit another. And the Dodgers take a 3-2 lead. So it looks like Kevin from Texas. And the kid throws the home run back on the field. Kevin will take it.
But 3 home runs that day.
High fly ball into deep left field. Kevin has hit another one. 3 home runs for Kevin Elster. Can you believe that story? A guy who had dropped out of baseball, stayed in shape merely to stay in shape. No thought about playing more baseball. And now he has a 3 home run game.
Elster would go on to hit only 11 more home runs the entire season, and he actually called it a career after 2000. No player would match his single-game home run total at Pacific Bell Park for another 12 years. I'm sure some of you have already done the math, but yes, that means it took Pablo Sandoval's historic 3 home run game in Game 1 of the 2012 World Series for Kevin Elster to finally be dethroned. Not bad for a guy who was just chilling on his couch just a few months prior. But it wasn't just Elster making the park look small that day. He, Bonds, first baseman J.T. Snow, and catcher Doug Mirabelli all went deep in the game. And how do we put it? Shall we say the not-so-fleet-of-foot Mirabelli also hit a triple into the deepest part of the outfield, and thus, Triple's Alley was born. The Giants would go on to lose the game 6-5. In fact, they lost their first 6 games at their new home before finally defeating the Montreal Expos on April 29th, a full 18 days after the park officially opened its doors. Despite the losses, the park became an instant smash, and the opening day celebration is one that fans in attendance will never forget. The voice who led that opening day celebration is also celebrating her 20th year with the Giants organization, the one and only Renel Brooks-Moon. Renel has been a Bay Area radio staple for over 30 years, and in 2000, she became the second female PA announcer in American professional sports history. I had a chance to talk to the longtime voice of Oracle Park on what the ballpark means to her and her memories of opening day 20 years ago. Well, I don't think there's a more fitting guest to kick off our podcast celebrating 20 years of Giants baseball at 3rd and King than the next voice you're about to hear. She's entering her 20th year on the mic as public address announcer for the San Francisco Giants. She's a radio legend who's become one of the most recognizable voices in the Bay Area, and she is Renel Brooks-Moon. Renel, thanks so much for joining me today.
Holy cow, thank you for that glowing introduction. That was awesome. Thank you.
I really mean it. Like, it's, you just can't separate your voice from the ballpark. It has become really a fabric of that ballpark and of San Francisco baseball. So, and I know I'm not the only fan who feels that way.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Today we're revisiting opening day back in 2000. But before we talk about that, I do want to go back just a little bit before when you first found out that you were going to be the new voice of that brand new downtown San Francisco ballpark. Take me back of your memories of that process. What was that like? And was this something that, before you were approached about it, something that you ever dreamed of as a possible job as a PA announcer for a professional baseball team?
Not in a million years. And this is a team that I, grew up rooting for. And, baseball means a lot to my family. We are truly a baseball family. My grandpa, was a big fan of Negro League baseball and just really passed his passion down to my mom, who then passed it on down to me. But, as a little girl growing up, a sports career, not even a radio career, seemed like it was possible for me because I didn't see any women and certainly any women of color doing this. So not in a million years. And even when my predecessor, Sherry Davis, who did the last 7 seasons at Candlestick, even when she was hired, it was an open call. It was a fan audition open call. And for some reason, it never even occurred to me at that point to go to the fan audition. By that time I was really immersed in my radio career on KMEL and was really satisfied doing that, but it just never occurred to me. So I was completely outdone when I got a voicemail message in the fall of 1999 from the vice president of marketing for the Giants, asking me if I'd be interested in auditioning. So I didn't see that coming at all.
Your style also feels very different than what we were used to at that point, not just because you were at that point the second woman to ever be a PA announcer, but I think growing up, going to baseball games, people were used to sort of that the Bob Shepard style, that sort of stoic, very serious sort of baseball announcer. And I think a big reason why fans can't separate you from the ballpark at this point is you have this sort of warmth and joy that you bring that felt very unique and set the tone perfectly for this new era of Giants baseball. So what was your approach to your style on the mic? Was it just take what you've been doing in radio and bring that same energy?
Well, thank you so much for saying that. I mean, that really means a lot to me because, and I think I know my style has evolved, over the last 2 decades. Every year I kind of revisit it, based on the past season's previous experience and just getting more comfortable and more familiar in general with the role. But I tell you, the whole audition process, I don't even know if I was really truly present in I was just kind of just doing it. And I think probably there was a part of me that didn't even think I would really be considered. And that's just, basic insecurities for being an insecure performer for, my whole life and everything. But, I mean, every audition I've gone on, I never think I'm going to get it. But I just kind of went through the process, and there's no book you can read or no class you can really go to. And I really had to figure it out on my own. So I went through 3 auditions, all of them at Candlestick, of course. And the first one, they gave me some starting lineups and some in-game copy to read and stuff like that. And I just had fun with it. And I don't even think that first audition, if I really thought about my delivery that much. I said, I'm just going to have fun with this. I love this game. I love the sport. I'm going to absolutely respect it. I'm not going to go bananas and, do like a morning zoo kind of delivery or anything. But I just kind of had fun with it. And then it got real for me when I got a call to come back for a second audition. And then it got really real when I got called back for the third audition. And I think that's when I started to think more about my delivery. And of course, that was something that I was concerned about, on opening day 2000. I always felt confident that I could do the job, and just give me a shot before you start ripping me. You know what I mean? Because I knew the ripping was coming and everything, but I wanted to project enthusiasm, but not over the top enthusiasm and, dial it back when necessary. But it's really been a lot of trial and error for me over the years because if I were to listen back to the 2000 season and what I did in the 2019 season, I think you'd hear a lot of evolving and a lot of growth and certainly much more comfortable because I was really nervous those first few years.
Oh, I bet. Absolutely. Especially just, just remembering the hype surrounding the opening of this ballpark was just incredible. And speaking of, can you recall the first time you walked inside of Pacific Bell Park? And aside from turning on the mic for the first time, just getting inside and taking a look at it as a baseball fan, do you remember what your feelings were, the emotions that swept over you that first time you got a glimpse of that field?
Well, and it's interesting you talk about all the hype before the ballpark opened, and I didn't expect to be covered as part of that hype. I think that's when that started to happen is when I started to kind of get freaked out. Up until that point, I'd been having a pretty good time with it, right? And so now all of a sudden, I'm getting all these interview requests, and I'm like, but I'm not the story here. And I don't want to be the story here, even though I get that it was hugely significant and I understand the responsibility that came with it. But I was like, I'm good. I think we can cover other things here. But actually, the first time I walked into, and it's so funny now to say Pacific Bell Park, right? Sounds so foreign, but it was actually I had a construction hat on and goggles, and it was maybe February of 2000. And I remember Cron 4 wanted to interview me at the site. So that's the first time I'd seen the ballpark. And that's the first time and I'm getting really emotional because I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be on the microphone in this amazing place for 40,000 people. And that's when it started to really sink in. But as I'm feeling all this emotion, I'm being interviewed by Channel 4. So it's like, now actually I'd like to see that interview too, because who knows what was going on. I don't even know if I was coherent during that interview, because emotionally I was going through that, oh, this ish just got real. And now I'm trying to be composed during this interview. But I remember being there with the hard hat on and also thinking, how is this thing going to be ready on April 11th? Because it's amazing how it's constructed. Because when I was there in February that year, I was like, there's no way this is going to happen in 2 months. So that was really interesting too. But I will never forget that day. And I think I actually did have a couple of print article interviews that day as well. Yeah, there was a lot going on. I don't want to call it distractions, but in terms of me just really trying to focus on the job at hand, I had a lot of different stuff coming at me from the outside that I guess probably added to the pressure I put on myself.
Right. I mean, you said it, you becoming just the second woman to fill that role. The ballpark has been, years and years of hype. I can imagine just in a way that opening day was almost a relief in a lot of ways of just like, all those stories are over. We can just play baseball. I can get to my role. And what do you remember about that day, the pageantry of it all? What are some of the lasting memories from opening day 2000 for you?
Well, I didn't really settle in until after all the pomp and circumstance of the pregame ceremony. And because I was on the field, which is now a tradition for me to be on the field for opening day, but I wasn't, I was like, what? I'm sorry, what now? You...
Yeah, I thought I just had to turn the mic on up here.
Oh, but no, you're going to be on the field. You're going to be in front of, I think it was Fox Sports Net Bay Area. Then you're going to be in front of the TV audience. The radio audience is going to be listening. I'm sorry, come again. Now what now? Now what? And there was a very lengthy script that I had to read and then tossed to John Miller for the lineups. Then it came back to me for the anthem. But once we got through all of that, and I got back up to the booth, I was like, okay, now I can settle in and do what I need to do, all the while being mindful that, to be honest, a lot of people were listening and cheering against me that day. So I had to try and keep that out of my mind and just, kind of focus on, stay in my wheelhouse, stay in my zone, keep my eyes on the prize. So I remember being extremely nervous. I remember that whole pregame, which was probably like an hour. It felt like 5 hours. Because I was such a wreck. My favorite memory of that day is that my parents were there. My dad, who I lost in 2003, for my parents to be there in person to see their child accomplish this, and not to go too deep here, but, my parents grew up in the Jim Crow South. And my parents grew up with Negro League baseball. And for their female child to grow up and be a PA announcer in Major League Baseball meant so much to so many people that day, but particularly to my family for so many reasons. So on a personal level, it was really hard to, kind of keep my emotions in check for that very reason. I kept thinking about my grandpa and my uncle who, are another two big influences in my life and who loved baseball and loved the Giants. And I will always be grateful that, my parents were there that day. But there was a lot of stuff going on in my head. And I just was trying to try and stay focused as best I could. But it was really a lot. But I'm telling you, introducing the anthem on the field with 40,000 people and the wave of emotion on that day and just that feeling of our city holiday and feeling like a real community, which is the feel we have every home opener, right? It was very palpable for me that day. And and looking up and seeing all the bunting and then the traditional flyover, which I think we had that day because there've been some days that we haven't because of the
Yeah,
weather.
must have. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it was a good enough day for that. And I remember wearing a pantsuit with an orange vest, which if anybody has any photos or video of that, I would like it destroyed immediately. Please, we don't need to see that outfit from April 2000. That
Yeah, I'll
was
be
a
sure not to Google that. I promise,
please.
I swear.
I advise all of you, please don't look at that. That was a fashion don't. The fashion police will arrest me. Statute of limitations, be damned. But and those are things that no male PA announcer ever thinks about. I just have to point that out, right? And then we go on and get swept by the Dodgers, and now I'm thinking, wait, is it me? What?
I could not win for almost a whole month when the ballpark's open. It was incredible.
It was unbelievable. All the hype, all the excitement, all the pomp and circumstance, and all the stuff we were doing behind the scenes was like, you have got to be kidding me right now. But it was a really special day for a number of reasons. And it wasn't until the Christmas party at the end of that first season, the party was on the field, and my husband and I walked into an empty stadium. And that's the first time I really looked around and said, oh my God. I saw all those empty seats, which I'm just not thinking about when I'm doing the game and how, that those seats are filled. And I was like, oh my God, look what I just did this year. And that was another pretty powerful moment for me. And, since that first season, I've just really been trying to be mindful of, everything that happens because I've been able to witness and experience so much that I'm so grateful for that, a lot of PA announcers that have been in the league longer than me have never experienced. I got to the postseason in my first season, which was bananas. So just trying to be really present and grateful for everything.
Well, that's fantastic. And, opening day is such it's like going back to school in a way. And
Yeah.
obviously that day itself just amped to another level, but just incredible hearing just the personal experiences and your parents getting to be there and just incredible stuff. I appreciate the time, Renel. I'll leave you with one more question here, and we've been talking about it throughout the interview, and I don't think it's an overstatement to say that you are a trailblazer for women in sports broadcasting, and a lot has certainly changed over the last 20 years since your first game on the mic back in 2000. More women than ever are working in sports broadcasting. The New York Mets have a female PA announcer now, Maricel Castro. I loved the video the two of you did last year. And I just want to hear your thoughts on the strides that have been made for women in sports over the last 20 years. And what do you think needs to be done in sports broadcasting to make it more inclusive as the years go on?
Yeah, it's really been incredible when I look back, and we've made a lot of progress, but there's still much more work to be done. But for me, in the entertainment department at the ballpark, that first season, it was just me. I was the only full-time woman in that department. It was just me, and the basic game day crew was all male. And I kind of really had to figure stuff out on my own. Like I said before, there's no class to go to, there's no workshop to go to, or maybe there is now, but there certainly wasn't for me. I had to figure it out on my own. And in fact, I actually had to be trained, if you will. They set me up for a week of spring training games in March 2000. Most of them got rained out, which is not helping my situation. But the PA announcer at Scottsdale Stadium at the time, I had to basically shadow him and trust and believe he was not happy about that. And as I kind of look back on it, I'm like, I think perhaps he thought he maybe had a shot at the big job, and perhaps they didn't even tell him I was coming, which I think is probably what happened because it also happened in my radio career a few times. I could see the pattern. And this is not to throw anybody under the bus or everything, but there's a certain culture that still has to change. But he was clearly not happy with me having to shadow him and me getting on the mic a few times. I'm happy to say that by the end of that, we had forged a pretty good friendship. And we're still friends today and keep in touch on Facebook. And really, that's kind of been the story of my career. It's like I show up and it's like, oh, really? And I'm supposed to help you. I'm sure had I been a man, I probably would have been welcomed with open arms. I don't know, but this is just my experience. So I like to share with the fact that I was the only woman in that department. And also the thing that concerned me, I was concerned about the crew. How were they going to, accept me? And I think what actually worked to my advantage, not just with the crew and the staff at the Giants, but with a lot of our fan base, there was already a familiarity with me because I had been on the radio for 20 plus years by that time. So there was always already a familiarity with me. And the young guys that I'm working with, actually, many of them grew up listening to me. And this is a younger generation as well. It's not the old guard that I had dealt with, early on in my career. And I've noticed they were way more open to me being a woman in that position. They could not have been more friendly. They could not have been more respectful. And I think it took maybe one day for us all to just feel connected. And then day two, these young men couldn't do enough to help me. But the main thing that touched me the most is how much they wanted to protect me. They would not let me, walk to my car by myself at night, and or if there was a crowd around me, or they do crowd control. And I mean, they just got so protective of me, and we're with each other more than we're with our own families during a season, and we really have become family. And I have since watched them grow, and I've been to so many weddings I can't even tell you. I've been to so many baby showers I can't even tell you. I have emceed wedding receptions for a lot of a lot of my younger colleagues and everything. Anyway, that's a long way of me saying that, yeah, 20 years ago, I was the only woman in the department. And since then, there are more women, not just in my department, but in the front office and more middle management positions. We do have two women in upper management that have been there for quite some time. And Amy G and I were just talking a few weeks ago about how we knew each other long before either one of us started working for the Giants, because I had done some stuff at the network a million years ago when it was. I've been through Sports Channel, Fox Sports Net, Comcast Sports Net Bay Area. I've been through every iteration of our local TV station. I'd done some stuff for the A's and I'd done some stuff for the Raiders. And Amy was like, she edited my stuff. So, and now I look at how she has progressed in her career. And, I've had a chance to meet Jessica Mendoza, and if there's visiting sideline reporters, I always try to reach out to them. Inevitably, we're all meeting in the ladies' room at the same time, doing makeup and stuff before we have to do our hits and everything. And Therese, who's our in stadium host, I didn't see that coming in 2000. So I'm really thrilled about it. Marisol at the Mets, we're best friends. I'm not even kidding you. I tweeted her, what do you kids say? I DM'd her. I don't know. So
Yeah, we'll go with that.
after she got hired and reached out, and we started a Twitter conversation, then we exchanged emails. Next thing I know, I'm coming to New York with the team, and we are just in a club of our own. And during that whole video that you saw, we could not stop hugging each other and holding each other's hands. And it's important for me to reach out to all these women over these last 20 years because I didn't have a woman that I could reach out to. I want to be for them what I didn't have. What is disheartening, however, is the fact that Marisol and we saw each other in November. Tommy, my husband and I went to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, got together for coffee with Marisol, and we talked during the season as well. And she's actually facing a lot of the similar challenges that I did, and quite frankly, still do on occasion. So that is a little disheartening to me. I mean, we were finishing each other's sentences. I'm like, I know exactly what happened to you, and this is how it went down for me. And a lot of the women that I meet that work for other networks and other teams, we all are still sharing the same struggles and the same issues. So that's disheartening to me. And quite frankly, that's not going to change in any industry until there are more women and people of color in power positions. That's the only way we're going to make significant and lasting change. So, I always implore all the young women that are coming up to, please We have to support each other. We have to have each other's backs. We already have enough still in 2020 to fight against. We can't be fighting amongst each other. So, stronger together is a phrase we've all been hearing a lot, and it's very true, and it's something that I preach to all the women broadcasters that are my mentees. We're going to get there. I mean, we've already accomplished so much, but it's important for us to stay in touch and have each other's back and be there to support one another and, a shoulder to lean on and to give advice and everything. And the other thing that I want to say, flipping it back on the positive, is how little boys, it's just been fantastic how little boys have responded to me. Little Giants fans have responded to me over the 20 years. I have little boys that bring me their Little League cards. I have little boys that, wait for me to show up at the park to sign their caps or their gloves. And I mean, this started very early on in the early 2000s. And I was like, well, is this not the most wonderful and most refreshing thing? These little boys, they're excited about what I do, and it has nothing to do with my gender or my race, because they're growing up in a different time. And that is one of the most rewarding things. And then obviously the little girls that come up to me and want to give me a hug and want to grow up and do what I do. And, I've had many of them tweet me, and we've had Twitter conversations, or I give them my email and, talk about the things that they can do, as they're trying to come up in this business. So I love my job, and I understand that it comes with a lot of responsibility from day one. And that's the thing that is most important to me, that I have an impact on the community. I have an impact on little boys and little girls, and that hopefully it's going to keep moving us in a better direction as we move forward.
Thanks to Renel for sharing her Third and King memories, and I think I speak for every Giants fan when I say we hope to hear her voice ringing out from the ballpark again very soon. Well, despite a loss on opening day, Pac Bell Park still seemed like an instant hit and perfect in basically every way, with one big exception. Before we leave, I'd be remiss if we didn't mention the most reviled mascot in San Francisco Giants history. No, I'm not talking about the Crazy Crab, but a lesser-known and maybe more infamous mascot that briefly roamed right field.
Rusty. 14 feet tall, 11,000 pounds, and in between innings, he will come out to entertain the fans. He can do everything from a head-first slide to a jaunty tip of his cap. He has 18 moving parts, including his eyebrows, and believe me, this will be a lot better than, for instance, dot racing, and I think the fans are going to love it.
Yes, Rusty the Robot, a giant state-of-the-art animatronic that seemed like a perfect fit for the ballpark's sort of kitschy but old-school aesthetic. I never actually got to see Rusty live in person, but as someone who loves classic Disneyland rides like Pirates of the Caribbean or the Haunted Mansion, this feels like something that would have been right in my wheelhouse. Alas, the fan base as a whole doesn't seem to have the same enthusiasm for creepy 14-foot tall robots as I do, so Rusty was taken down due to, quote, technical issues. Right. I think the issue probably being that he frightened small children. I couldn't actually find the exact date that Rusty was removed from the brick wall in right field, so if anybody out there knows, I'd appreciate the help. But he could be seen hanging inside the right field wall for about 8 years after. He's since been taken down and taken to the scrapyard and recycled. Rusty still lives on, though, thanks to the magic of the internet. The company that created Rusty, Technifex, who have also worked on attractions for Universal Studios, SeaWorld, Six Flags, and Disney parks, still has an informational webpage about their long-gone but never forgotten mechanical mascot. I'll be sure to leave a link in the episode description. That'll wrap things up. Join me next week and all season long for more memories from 24 Willie Mays Plaza. Until then, I'm Cody Pasby, and we'll see you soon at Third and King.